Now the next challenge today, and we're going to try to work on this today because it's basically there's pouring rain. The two things I want to lay out are that stripe that's on the fairing, that red stripe. I think I can get that laid out today. That'll be nice. Get it all backmasked and ready to paint. And also Mark is going to bring over a paper template of the size of these number plates so we get them exact. I already have the yellow paint mixed for that. So I'm really itching to get a lot of this backmasking. Anything I can get backmasked today will get prepped up in preparation for the next paintable day. Now from this picture, and there's several pictures on the internet, I can get pretty good placement. It's the thickness of minus about 1/4 of an inch, and I know it bends a little bit down as it wraps around the front of the fairing. So again, that's what I'm going to try to get backmasked up right now while I have a little bit of time. Now one of the things I need is some of the decal placements here Mark wants to do. We're going to try to get a work session going during the week, but he's got some personal things to do this week. This may not happen right away, but I'm trying to get anything I can do ready. Now one of the things I can get ready, again, that stripe, and to lay it out, I've had this has been color sanded at least 5-6 times. It's pretty much ready. And we're going to try to lay that stripe out right now. And once that's done, then we just pretty much have to wait for a day that we can paint. So the first thing I want to do is just by looking at that picture that's on the internet, it gives us a rough idea of where this is going to ultimately wind up. I want to get some fresh tape out. We do have some fresh tape here. And believe me, when you get the paint edge that's going to be right on the edge, I definitely want to have a new roll. This tape is good for a lot of stuff, but not for getting that nice edge. Now this will be pretty interesting because obviously we have to do this by eye. We don't have a mock-up of it. And it does run completely parallel to the scoop. Now what happens is this dives down. Now Mark mentioned this when he was, where the hell's my razor? When he was here, he mentioned how it took a dive down. Well, the reason it does is because this edge, if you do the geometry of it, it can't go straight. It has to go up and follow this line. So we're gonna keep that in mind. Again, this is really just an exercise in eyeballing here. Like a chip foose thing too. What we gotta do, we don't have chip foose here though. That's the problem. Chip who? Now the nice thing is I can go back to the computer screen, or if I had some magazine pictures or whatever, I can also take this stripe right now and I can measure it. And just make sure I don't have it. I actually got it pretty good. Right now what I have to do is I have to clip this just enough. This will be a little trickier than it looks. That has to go down in there. This has to go down in there. And one of the things that makes possible the amount of work we get done in this shop, small shop, that we really don't waste a lot of time. We do everything as efficiently as possible. So now I need to, once I get that to the point where I'm thinking it might be right, this part is really awkward to hold. What I'll go back to that screen, see if it looks exactly like it. If it doesn't, I'll move the tape, and then once I have that done, I'll be ready to add the tin foil to it, and that'll be another part ready to go. Now as I work off the drawing, there's a little bit of an issue. When this measurement here is off, this stripe runs parallel to this parting line. If I measure up at every dimension and then measure up to the top, what happens is this does not follow this line. You would think it would, and so I have to look at it from that point of view. It's mechanically correct, but like the pillars at a Parthenon, it doesn't look right to me, but yet it is mechanically right. So it's just one of the things, well, we're going to go with mechanically right. And the decal does fit in there. Now the challenge is to get the other side to be an exact mirror image and then measure from here to here to here and then to the top of the stripe, and then knowing full well that this is going to be a little bit of an angle. If we follow this angle, the stripe curves up. It's kind of a funky thing. I don't think well, what it is, I think what happens is this scoop probably gets wider at the back, and they didn't get it into the panel. They have it in the panel on a little bit of an angle. Little details. Everything's a little detail. But I think I'll go with mechanically right. Now after backmasking this, there's a couple of issues that really you would think they wouldn't be, but they are. One of the issues, these scoops. And again, I've done this all, the measurements are all correct, I know that, but I have to take this and paint this up and around and down into here. That paint has to go around the corner. So in essence, what I had to do is backmask inside here. And backmask, this stripe has to bend around the edge. Now, most of the time when they do this with stickers, if you ever notice modern bikes, they have these glue-on stickers that end right at the edge. They never wrap around because it's difficult to do that. So by having this paint go around, it'll really define this as being a little, well, I'm not sure. It'll define it somehow. Anyway, a lot of backmasking to doing this, almost a half a roll of tin foil, but one of the other choices would have been, and probably it would have been smarter if I did it this way, if I knew ahead of time, would be to mask this red stripe, and I've always said you always do the smallest color first, then backmask the red and paint the white. The problem was this thing needed so much body work, I was afraid it was 6 of one, half a dozen of another. So it's a roll of this stuff. Doesn't even matter. But anyway, that's pretty much ready. I'm kind of happy. I'm going to have to figure some way of jigging it up, and I can't paint today. It's pouring rain. I'm going to have to paint from the inside out over here, and I'm sure that at some point in time, while we're sanding the clear, we'll be touching up little spots, because these are still, it's an awkward thing to paint around a corner like that. But if it was easy, everybody'd have a Honda two-stroke. Now some of these more complex decal layouts, I'm especially concerned with getting the Honda on the tank the way Mark would like it. Mark has already commissioned to have these done in clear. We have white ones, red ones. We're going to do them clear. John Pothier is making us up the special V-twins. I guess we're at a point where we got to wait for some painting weather here. Or what we really need is for Mark to stop by one evening. And this is what happens. You know, one of the things that happens in a project like this, where it's really complex, you always run into things where you run out of things that you can do with the material you have in-house. Now, another thing I don't know, I'm looking at the Honda wings. I'm going to definitely wait till Mark gets here for that, when he has a night or an evening. The Honda up above the headlight, I'm not sure if he even has that in-house yet, but we still have a few little spots on that fairing I want to touch up. But what I'm going to do is, once this red is painted and I've pulled it off, I can backmask over the red while I do a couple more little spots in there. There's just an endless amount of little spots to touch up. For a simple reason. It's a very simple reason. This part was really in rough shape when we started it, and a lot of these things, you don't see the little ripple in the paint come through until the paint all dries out for a day or two. Now, I'm not sure about this. I don't see this sticker, this ATAC sticker. And maybe Mark's not going to be putting that on. I don't know. We'll find out. But it's a complex. This is really a complex restoration. But boy, I can picture when this is done how nice it's going to look. Now I have some new stuff to try today. Again, because it's raining. I just noticed this. Mark brought over a sleeve of the sandpaper. It's 600, of course. Made in Portugal. Now we have a friend in Portugal working on his motorcycle. And so, hey, we're using your sandpaper. Now, the funniest thing my friend in Portugal I ever remember hearing is they don't have a harbor freight. Well, you may as well sell your motorcycle. Let's see if this sandpaper is any good. Now, because here's one of the things. On a rainy day, I always try to do things like this. I would not want to spend the time, because we're trying to do this efficiently. We're doing a lot of things at once. I don't want to spend a bright sunny day that I can be painting. Well, you can kind of figure this out. Sandpaper feels pretty good. Portugal. Who knew? Who knew? Anyway, I can usually tell right away if this is good quality or not. And we have bought some sleeves of sandpaper. Won't mention any names, so I don't want to get sued, but really, we're not that great. Let's see how this works out. Now, what this will do is this will prepare this part for the next coat of clear. This has just got one coat of clear. I think 2 coats, doesn't matter. It's the base clear. We can sand this with 600, hopefully later in this week. Well, we'll have a day we can paint. We also have a job we're going to do for Bob Navola. We're making him up some brackets for his special controls for his bike. He wants to come over one evening. So let's see how this Portuguese sandpaper works. Actually, it works pretty good. Wow. I'm moving to Portugal. That's all there is to it. Hey, that's got to dry up yet. But again, this once we get the base clear on, now what's really to our advantage is this base clear can dry out and harden up, which makes it's way easier to sand it than if it's only 24 hours old. So the Portuguese sandpaper looks like a winner. That'll add a dimension here, and I'll spend most of the rest of this day, use up the rest of a rainy day to well, get as much of this stuff prepped up for our next paintable day. Now, a couple of things that I wanted to mention. These are the kind of things that on old parts that have had a rough service life, maybe had a lot of body work. This is what constantly happens with these parts, and it's why we do all these sandings. There's a bad spot right there. Now I'll airbrush in or spray, depending. Just before we put the clear on, I'll just hit that with red. And by the way, you can, when you sand through, that's fine, because you've just picked up a bad spot that would have shown in the final products. We want to get rid of that. Most important thing, I want to sand in these valleys. Now, I didn't do it yet because I wanted to do it up on the macro lens. But to get that every part of the part is dull. But the most important thing, where there's a valley, to get that paint. And by the way, this Portuguese sandpaper is really good. Who knew? Portuguese sandpaper, who knew? Like Italian pizza, who knew? Anyway, there's one fisheye in the part which we know we had. We did a repair up here. This part had a big ugly thing in it. But once I find, here's that. If you see that little shiny spot, that's a little tiny fisheye. And there's only one way I know that you can kind of stack the deck in your favor. Sand it till that fisheye isn't there anymore and recoat it. And hope it doesn't come back. Sometime it does, sometime it doesn't. And I know if you're saying, oh, put the fisheye killer in the paint. We've got fisheye killer. There's always, in old parts this old, there's always little, who the hell knows where they come from outer space. I think this bike originally came from Japan, but I'm not sure. But by picking up all these high spots, the other thing is radiusing off all these edges, because we want to have that nice edge. And Vince just revealed his bike. This weekend we were riding. He revealed his BMW, and boy, in the sunlight, when the bike was all put together, I think of all the hours I spent buffing out, all the hours I spent sanding and doing all the things, worth every penny. In the end, and I always try to convince people of this, this is a winter rainy day, it's cold. We won't miss this day. But if we don't do the job right, and you're riding around next summer, and Mark likes to go to the village market shows and stuff, and there's a big chunk of paint falls out or something. Let me just show this too. And of course, all these things only apply to the very highest end of painting. When you go to a body shop at Earl Scheib and get your bike painted in 2 hours, they don't do this. So what we're looking for is, here's an edge we picked up. We're going to radius that edge. We're going to either airbrush or paint. You see, we've picked up, these are all high spots, and this is why we do these sandings. If you don't pick up any high spots, it probably means you probably had brand new parts, although not really. But, and even if we had to, in the worst of all worlds, we could just repaint the red because we're using this. Now we've got a smooth flowing base coat. Now these parts, I was surprised. They have a lot of little tiny fish eyes in them. Nothing terrible. But if we ignored them at this point and didn't get them sorted out, once we put the decals on, it would have been a lot more work. Because we'd be sanding through tentatively on the edges of the decals and stuff. So this is kind of like a pay me now or pay me later part of the job. And each time we do this, we're adding that little level of quality to it that in the end, I'm sure we're going to be at the village market and Mark's going to be getting that big trophy that they give out every month. Turbo Steve is going to sponsor it, I'm sure. Anyway, we do enjoy getting together and showing off our handiwork and our restorations and whatever, and competing with the guys who just go buy new stuff in a store. They always lose. It's always better to have old stuff. Old men, old houses. My whole life, everything I have is old. Old friends. Need some new friends. Need some young ones. Anyway, we got to just keep after this, and I'll show this up close and personal why. Of course, there's 2 of these, so if we can show this real close, there's still a bunch of little baby fish eyes in here. And if we don't get them out right here, if we don't get these out right now, we're going to pay later. Well, I was hoping this day would, I'd finish it off with, well, it ain't going to happen. That the sun would come out and we'd be able to paint. Well, that ain't going to happen. But the day did end with a lot of stuff done. And we're ready for our next painting day. We got the stripe ready. We still have some touch-ups to do. We always have touch-ups right up to the final buff out. And that's what results in the quality of stuff that we try to do at this shop. And it's just, I mean, if you could ever imagine, this is the most work I've ever had in the shop, and I think tomorrow Luciano's bringing over his Suzuki stuff to paint. I don't know what he's got. In the next couple days, Vlad and I are going down and making a last-ditch effort to get the paint for the Bomoda. We've had no luck. I'm not crazy about trying to use that water-based paint. Vlad would have had to buy different spray guns. That would not have worked. I got the gold leaf to, if we're ever going to use that on Glenn's project, I'm not sure, but I like to at the end of every day just do a little walk around and see, try to plan out the next day. But if you like being busy, this is a good business to be in. The money flows like water. Anyway, I really do like that Portuguese sandpaper. That was a find. Mark, well, in fact, I ought to put this on a video. Let's see the name of it. Rhino Redline. What is this good sandpaper? Here's the whole thing made in Portugal. And all day we only used 2 pieces of sandpaper. So even if this is expensive stuff, I think that's worth putting on a video. And that fairing is going to be ready. I'm looking forward to getting that painted. But hey, all I can say is, as I always do, thanks for watching. And when we saw the look on Vince's face, when we did the reveal, Vince, the face says it all.